Hey, good morning, all. Welcome to the Common Good Podcast. Tuesday, August 24th, which Tuesday means it's Politics Day around here. And Doug Pagitt here in Minneapolis, joined by Robb Ryerse somewhere outside of Fayetteville, Arkansas, in an undisclosed location still, or an unknown location.
Literally in my office in
we don't
Fayetteville,
know where it is.
Arkansas.
I'm just saying, yeah. we don't know that, so it's a little intrigue. A little political commentary for you today. Well, we'll get to all that in a minute, but a lot going on. It's 10 a.m. here in the Central Time Zone as we take this live today. Love to know where you are and what time it is. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, send a note or a comment. Thanks to all of you who do that, by the way. I really, really appreciate it. It's always heartwarming and encouraging. So we'd love to know where you're coming from on the live stream as well. So a lot going on in the Pagitt household. Here where I live, we have our 2-year-old just under 2-year-old grandson staying over, and I was on make sure the baby, when they wake up at night, is not scared by the big thunderstorm. So I've been up since 3 a.m. Pacing about, being nervous, and then doing that terrible thing. You don't do it 3 a.m. Say to yourself, maybe I'll just grab my phone for a minute and start. As soon as that LED screen lights up and hits your eyes and whatever that light wave is, there it is, you're shot. So I'm exhausted and ready for a nap after being up for 7 hours. But at the Ryerse household, apparently, there's even more going on. Rob, in addition to all the other things you have going on in your life.
Yeah, we got home from Ireland. My wife and I did last Sunday, a week ago Sunday, after spending 10 days in Ireland for our 25th wedding anniversary. And we came home to see 3 of our 4 children, expecting them to be excited to see us because they hadn't seen us in 10 days. And
because they're 5, 6, and 8 years old, you thought, I wonder how they fared.
Yeah, 6, 17, and 21.
Okay,
and came through the door, and nobody was there, and I see them on the back porch. So I go through the door to the back porch. Hey, I'm home. And no reaction at all, because about 30 minutes before this, my children had discovered that the neighborhood floozy, also known as a stray cat, had yet again given birth to kittens and deposited 3 of them in our backyard. And so they just no reaction to you haven't seen mom and dad in 10 days. Who cares? We've got kittens. And so for the last week or so, we have been taking care of kittens. There were 3 originally, and then the mom came and took one of them back. And
how did she find her? Did she come to the door? Did she come knock on the door?
Well, we had for several days had left them outside in a basket at night, so that she could come and feed them. She could, be reunited with them if need be. And she did, but she left 2 of them. And we thought, well, maybe she'll come back the following day.
Sure.
And get the other ones, but no. And so we are now the caretakers of 2 kittens. And I don't know if you know this, Doug, but
I know nothing
kittens
of cats.
that they're just a few weeks old. I think they're probably maybe 4 weeks old now. Kittens don't know how to put this delicately, use the bathroom on their own. And so kittens have to be stimulated to both, go number 1 and go number 2 by their
mom, like
their mother licking their private parts to stimulate them, and that's for a couple of weeks. Apparently, that's what mother cats do. They lick their children, their kittens, to stimulate them to use the restroom. So as new new kitten caregivers, you might imagine what some of my time over the last week has included, and that is
it's just. I'm adding to my list of reasons to not have cats.
Using a damp cotton ball to get some kittens to use.
And how is it going? These are just natural, normal things that the beauty of creation brings to us. And how is this?
A little more than
development for the cats going.
A little more than a week on now. They are using the litter box, and one of them is drinking out of a bowl now. The other one is we continue to have to syringe feed, and they're doing real well. And the other big thing is cats are a little bit different from dogs in that they don't necessarily respond to being called, and so their names don't really matter all that much, right? And and so I think everybody in our family has a different set of names for the two kittens that we have.
About
They're
goodbye and see you later. Can you pick
yeah,
those?
Puppy and Sage, I think, are the most popular names for
Oh
them.
my gosh.
My wife, because my wife calls them Matt and Calvin, which is funny to me. I call them
Because
Tully.
those are the names of your children that are no longer living with you.
Yeah,
She has
exactly,
now
exactly.
literally replaced the names. Just easier. Don't learn new names.
That's
Just
right.
swap them out, or just
Yep.
swap the adopted cat names for your
Yep.
children that have fled the
Yep.
house.
Yep. I've
Well,
been calling them Tully and Arn, which is a deep cut that if you know, you know, and if you don't, you know. And my family is actually pretty horrified at those names, but yeah. So that's the
well,
adventures in our house, and shockingly, really well behaved dogs. The dogs have actually kind of enjoyed, I think, having the kittens around. One dog is scared of them. The other one likes to sniff them and let them bat at her nose. So fun
one
times
of
at
the
the
things
Ryerse.
one of the things we pay attention to is like how do people cluster themselves in our society, right? And there's some ways you can do that. There's dog people, cat people, no animal people. There's I guess snake people, bird people. You guys are now. Is this your first adopted cat? Are you now adopted cat people?
It's our first one in probably 20 plus years.
Okay.
When we were
You've
first
so you've
married,
made
we
this
had,
mistake before.
yeah,
You've been
yeah.
down this road,
Now,
and
yeah, this is much different. This is our first kittens that we've ever had, and so it's
good
fun
luck.
times. And plus, we've got uh, three caterpillars that have turned into, have cocooned themselves and are waiting to burst into butterflyhood. We've got, a little beta fish. It's like a full, wild kingdom happening at the Ryerse house.
Well, congratulations, and welcome to parenthood of the animals. Hey, among the things we're going to chat about today, Becky Wallenberg says here on the stream, she says she just watched the live feed swearing in of the new female governor of New York State.
Yeah, Governor
Becky
Kathy
saying she
Hochul.
sounds like a gracious woman, and we're going to talk about that today. Her taking over as governor, and the fall of Andrew Cuomo. That's significant. We're going to talk about the fall of some other people that are going to be coming soon. We'll talk a little bit about the pending fall of Matt Gaetz, which we didn't get to yesterday. The fall of some of the people who have been COVID deniers in the political spaces and the religious spaces, and of course the fall of Donald Trump, where now even his own supporters boo him. So a lot going on. We'll talk about some positive stuff too, but we'll get to that. Rob, so this Andrew Cuomo thing, I mean, it would be easy to sort of turn our minds to the new governor of New York and all that means and the significance of her as a leader or as a woman leader. There's something about the fact that Andrew Cuomo's removal from office was, his resignation from office was precipitated by his own bad behavior and abusive behavior and dominating behavior and domineering behavior of women, that he is replaced by a woman. There's something that to me just feels right about that. But boy, in some ways you could say the fall of Andrew Cuomo was, as you put it in a text earlier today, rapid and severe. Yeah.
You think about the last, 18 months or so, pretty much kind of along the is running parallel to the pandemic and to the presidential election. We've got kind of this really profound rise and fall of Andrew Cuomo. His dad Mario was, the governor of New York.
Yeah.
When I lived in New York in my junior high and high school years, Mario Cuomo was my governor. And so, here's someone who grew up in politics, grew up, well versed in all of this, understands how all of this works, and really capitalized on the crisis that was the pandemic, to rise to national prominence.
Mm-hmm.
While Donald Trump would go out and have press conferences in which he would encourage people to, drink bleach and, get sunlight to you remember all that, right? Inject bleach and, get a little light therapy.
And that's all back with the whole new version of that with the horse deworming pills. Yeah.
Exactly. Donald Trump would hold these press conferences day in and day out, and they would be just a train wreck of incompetence and humor. And at the same time, Andrew Cuomo would hold press conferences, and there was this sense of like, okay, here is steady, confident, intelligent leadership.
Yeah.
And he was, it seemed like he was providing the antidote to what Donald Trump was providing. And so, he rises to national prominence as a result of that. And two things happen in response to him rising to national prominence. One is he writes a book about leadership. Right. basically saying, hey, check me out. I'm doing this so well. Here's how you should do it.
I should write a book about it.
There's, what is that? What's that old, biblical reference that pride goes before a fall?
Yeah.
The other thing that happened at this time, and Doug, you probably remember this real clearly, is there was a lot of buyer's remorse amongst Democratic voters. There was this sense of, oh my goodness, we've picked Joe Biden, and here is Andrew Cuomo doing such a good job leading people. And there was this, in the speculation that happens to fill the 24-hour news stations, there was this conversation about, well, what do we have to do for Andrew Cuomo to become the nominee? And while that was never going to happen, just the fact that the conversation was taking place shows how prominent he had become. Yeah. How high his star had risen. And then, as all of this is taking place, then a couple of things happen. Andrew Cuomo gets accused by a number of women of misconduct, impropriety, sexual harassment, assault. Some of that in the workplace, some of that not in the workplace. I'm personally friends with one of the women that accused him, a former staffer of his named Lindsay Boylan, and Lindsay was one of the first to come out and did so very bravely, and all of a sudden you get this sense of like, oh wait a minute, there might be some dings here. This might not be like the best leader there possibly could be.
Yeah.
And listen, there have been politicians who have been accused of these kinds of things, and that have had no impact. I mean, frankly, Joe Biden has been accused of this kind of stuff, and it hasn't had any kind of political impact. Mm-hmm. And it looked like that was going to be the case with Cuomo for a while, and then it just began to snowball, and more women began accusing him. And then the other thing that happened at the same time is that there was a report that came out that New York was underreporting COVID deaths, and there was actually thousands of New Yorkers who had died of COVID in nursing homes. And there was suddenly this leadership, this steady, strong, competent leadership through the pandemic was undermined. The, hey, I'm going to write a book about how to be a great leader, that was undermined by this. There's some kind of incompetence or corruption that's happening here with Cuomo's administration. That, I think, was actually the straw that broke the camel's back, in terms of then an investigation took place into Cuomo's actions regarding staffers and other women that he came into contact with. Ultimately, it was found that he had been inappropriate, and he resigns as governor of New York in disgrace. And last night, became, I think it was at midnight last night, that the new governor was sworn in, and the final news report was this news report about how he had left his dog in the governor's mansion. I don't know.
Oh, is that right?
If you saw that. Yeah, he had
No.
he's like trying to give his dog away and nobody wanted it, and so he just left it in the governor's mansion. And it's just a remarkable rise and fall in a short period of time of someone who just skyrocketed to national prominence, and then, just a few months later is resigning in disgrace. And there's all sorts of lessons to be learned and things to talk about, but it's just to pull back and to think about the roller coaster that was the last 18 months with Andrew Cuomo is just breathtaking to think about.
Yeah, that is a great recap. And what it shines the light on in my mind is that these things about Cuomo, they were happening. It's not as if, in the last 18 months the stories of his behavior took place. These go back a ways. People knew all this. Mm-hmm. And so while to some of us, I guess most of the people in the country not in New York wouldn't have known the reputation of Cuomo, that politicos in that area say he really has no friends, even politically, that he used power and bullying and his name and the power of the governorship to whip people into line. That what looked like to some of us and watching just short spurts of running a COVID update, especially when New York was the epicenter of the COVID cases in the country, it looked like, well, there's flashes, there's moments of real leadership. And what about this guy? And I think we may have even talked about this back during the nomination time and process. Like, why is someone like Andrew Cuomo, a famous name, a successful governor of multiple terms in a large state, why is he not running for president? Well, the reason he wasn't running for president is because people knew all this stuff. There's even more people are saying that they know about how we behave that probably was not sufficient to make someone resign, but was sufficient to really, as you say, ding up the person's reputation in the mind of the American people. And it reminds us that moments in politics, whether they're great flashes or flashes of greatness and someone doing the right thing, or moments of struggle, that's not all that there is. That these are not actually reality television episodes, right? That are playing out before us. That there's this long history, and for someone like Cuomo, like you say, his dad, being the governor, he's been around this stuff for a very long time. To the degree that his excuses for his behavior is, I've been doing this for a really long time.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about the complication of his brother being one of the main anchors on CNN. Yes. It's just bizarre. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing in the political spaces, they're playing in the media spaces, obviously in the huge markets, all of that. And as Mike mentions in the comments here, that a lot of people were heralding him as a COVID hero, and others are now looking more deeply at that and saying, no, his behavior as governor wasn't even all that stand up, and even that stuff was being covered up. There were, before the truth stories shared by these women of Andrew Cuomo's wrong behavior that involved them, there were people who worked in his office on saying, I saw in news reports them saying, look, the governor is calling me, telling me what I have to say to cover up the reporting, and I'm not going to do it. And my wife do you remember this guy? There was this particular person who worked somewhere in the Health and Human Services of
Yep.
New York, and I can't remember his name, but he was one of the first sort of, as the phrase goes, one of the carries or one of the
Canaries
canaries
in the
in the coal mine. You can tell I don't know much about canaries or coal mines, but I think it's an expression that probably works here. That this guy's coming out saying, "Oh, look, the way this person behaves." Here's the other thing, Rob, that I think is curious about this. Had New York not become the center of COVID,
Hmm.
had Andrew Cuomo not offered himself as an alternative voice to Donald Trump, had there not been this mythological narrative that you articulated so well of him being such a high rising alternative voice for Democratic politics, maybe people wouldn't have paid as much attention to these kinds of allegations.
Yeah.
And many of the women, and you can speak to it maybe better if you have some inside words, would know that many of these women felt like they were powerless to even challenge him, but only once someone starts to shine so bright do you have the opportunity to raise these kinds of issues. There's something curious about how we do celebrity popularity in our society, where the brighter someone burns in the public eye, the more acceptable it is to sort of go after them. Like, had Andrew Cuomo had the ability to keep his head down, I mean, I think that's all
Yeah.
part of the problem that he manifests. And then there's a lot of people who say, as they did with Bill Clinton, as they do with other political leaders and entertainment figures, well, it's kind of okay. It's kind of worth it. Like, that's just how these people are. But look at
Mm.
all the benefit that we get from it. And that's a really dangerous place to be as well.
Yeah.
So these moments remind all of us, boy, we have a real choice to make. I'll give you a chance to make this comment before we'll jump into this love and politics pledge. But we try to suggest a demand on our politicians that we'll get to here in a minute. But this is what I think moments like Cuomo should conjure up in us, is not just a wow, look what happened, but wow, why do we have a system that operates like this? How does someone like Cuomo get away with this for so long, having the ability to silence so many people, as so many women and men who've been abused by bosses and people in power will tell you across all systems? Like, there's people who manage to keep this stuff quiet in their families, they keep it quiet in their churches, they do so in their businesses, where there's not even like public scrutiny and all the public pressure. That abusers and people who utilize power to silence others, they know how to manage and work those levers of power to keep people silenced and keep people out and keep people down, that they've, even the ones that they've wronged.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so it's such a complicated thing because I remember, just by way of analogy, uh, I live in Northwest Arkansas. My church is in Fayetteville, Arkansas, which is also home to the University of Arkansas, and in the Razorbacks. And several years ago, we had a professional or a professional a college football coach named Bobby Petrino who was coach of the Hogs, and he was frankly the best coach the Hogs probably could ever get. The Hogs are not like on the level of Alabama and Ohio State and Notre Dame in terms of national notoriety. And Bobby Petrino, I thought, was the best coach the Hogs could get. In fact, they were ranked in the top 5 near the end of one of his seasons as coach. He really did a remarkable job as head coach. And then he was in a motorcycle accident, and on the back of the motorcycle was a woman who is not his wife, who worked for him. And as it turned out, that he had gotten her a job, at the university, and all sorts of kind of fishy things coming up, and he was suspended and then ultimately fired. And I remember I was sitting in a Panera Bread one day, the day after he was fired, and
Having soup out
there,
of a bread bowl, I hope.
Exactly. And local news came in and they were interviewing people about
Oh,
what they thought about Bobby Petrino. And I was really glad they didn't end up coming over and interviewing me, because it would have gone something like this: local pastor defends Bobby Petrino.
oh boy.
Because I was like, listen, I'm not sending my, if I send my son to the University of Arkansas to play football, I I don't need the coach to be his pastor. I need the coach to be his football coach. And this is the best possible football coach this team will ever get. So he, maybe misused some funds. Maybe he, cheated on his wife. Okay, but he's a football coach. And that was just my sense. And I think a lot of people kind of have that same mentality when it comes to governors, presidents. Like, listen, what they do in their private life is one thing. And, we saw this with the Bill Clinton thing. And that relationship between character and competence is really, really important. And it's complicated because it
Mhm.
cuts all sorts of different ways, where we're willing to give some people a pass and not other people. Our the team we play for comes into play here as well. We will jump on people who are in the other party and their
Yeah.
leaders for their indiscretions, and forgive our own. And like, there's all sorts of different dynamics that come into play. But I think the thing for Cuomo that really happened was, I personally think that the allegations from the women who worked for him and came into his orbit and were assaulted by him, in my mind, for me, those things alone were enough for him to resign. I don't think that ever would have happened without the realization that his administration was trying to hide COVID deaths in nursing homes in New York
Mm,
in a way to make him look better. I think that kind of lack of character that showed up in his quote unquote personal life, even though it wasn't his personal life, but I think people kind of make that distinction in his personal life. Once that lack of character shows up in some kind of policy thing and some kind of public health crisis, and that undermines everything else, then he looks not just incompetent, he also, that allows people to revisit the character issues. It's a really complicated thing that, we all have to kind of walk this fine line of, listen, our political leaders are not perfect. And they're not our spiritual leaders, and not that I don't think we should demand perfection from our spiritual leaders either. But when does their imperfection, like,
well,
how much of
I
that
have
can
a
be
very
tolerated?
clear line on it, and I think it would
Yeah.
be I don't know about this former football coach. It seems like it would cross my line. It's clear the line that I identify is clearly there with Cuomo. I think it was even there with Clinton, and it's not about character. It's
Hmm.
not about simple moral struggle and failure and weakness. It's about power. It's about the
Hmm.
use of power
Yeah.
to take advantage, sexual advantage, relationship advantage, to touch someone who doesn't want to be touched. That's not a character flaw. That's not like, hey, I kind of fell in love with my secretary and we're going to now go have a life together and I know it's going to break my wife's heart. Got that. When your relationship with your secretary is based on your use of your power to have
Hmm.
that relationship with that person, with Bill Clinton as the president of the United States
With
and
an
a
intern.
20-year-old, 21-year-old intern,
Hmm.
there is no condition in which that
Yeah.
is a normal relationship. That is the kind of use of power. And when someone then has the power to give someone a job and then to protect this person's life and then tell that person to stay silent about this, now you're into a whole other area. So I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
And when a leader or when a person uses abuse and threat and innuendo and the warning of another person, giving warning to another person that they better not such and such and such and such. You know that you're into a place that's not just like, okay, look, hey, you know, I, I made a mistake. I slipped up. I said something. It's a moral failure. I'm sort of working on it. Right? We actually, in our whole world, give people a lot of grace for that.
Mm.
What men have tended to do is to put all so many acts of power and abuse in the category of personal failure, because we actually don't know how to talk about issues of power and abuse and domineering relationships. And it's not just men. There's some women who do this too. So, but more often than not, the stories that we all know of are times when powerful men are using this on their subordinates, men and women who are their subordinates. And I think that's where it crosses the line. So I'm with you that, yeah, look,
Yeah.
we don't need every leader to rise to every level of sort of, perfection where, hey, the person is rude or broke their vows to their wife. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, you can decide if you want to, support someone's leadership if they can't keep their vows to their wife, and people are in lots of different places on that. That's really different than they use their position or their personality to do things to people they didn't want to have happen.
Yeah.
And that is where it's crossed the line, or where
Yeah.
the person was put in such a conflictual relationship that the ability to even know if they want it to happen or not, or the promises of other things. So this is why in anytime we give leadership, we're also giving some basis of power to people. And when you give a basis of power to them, not to sound all, Spider-Man about this, but there's great responsibility that comes with having this kind of power. And that's a dynamic that I think that is the bright line,
Yeah.
and should be
Very well
talked
said.
about.
Yeah, which is why it's so critical that we reimagine what wielding power looks like and how
Yeah,
you do that. That maybe those who have this responsibility need to have something greater that
yeah,
governs them rather than the acquisition of more power for themselves. And that's where, our Love and Politics pledge comes in, because we are calling our elected leaders to have something greater in mind than just their own political gain, their own political power.
that's
And
right.
we're asking them to use love as the thing that guides how they act and how they as the pledge says, comport themselves
Yeah, I know you
in
love that
public
word.
and with other. I know it's a
You
Doug
love that
Pagitt
word.
favorite,
You love that
comport.
word, comport.
Um, and
Every
and
time
and
I run across the word comport used in other environments, I'm like, oh, God, I love that word. That is just
yeah,
a good one.
yeah,
All right. Well, let's give people who aren't familiar with it the Love and Politics Pledge little update here. Look, we put the Love and Politics Pledge together in part because we were trying to talk to faith voters about what should they expect, could they expect from voters, and we know that churches, synagogues, mosques, other religious organizations do tend to ask their people to operate in a way of love in the world. And then when it comes to politics, sometimes we do this thing where we give our politicians too much of a break. It seems to me. So we've said, look, you can define love however you want. We kind of like the First Corinthians expression of it, not just because it's from the Bible. Like my own thoughts on First Corinthians 13 is not that it's great because of its where it's recorded. It's great because I think it really captures the human experience of love, right? So it's this litany, that love is patient, love is kind, does not envy, love doesn't boast, love isn't proud, love doesn't dishonor others, love isn't self-seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no records of wrong, it doesn't delight in evil but rejoices with the truth, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Like that's pretty good, right? Like that's a way to live. Those aren't bad. I don't know what Andrew Cuomo had in his leadership book. Those are pretty good qualities of a leader, right?
this
So
is
then we
basically
say,
the exact opposite of Trump's old Twitter feed.
yes,
Basically, that's
well,
what love is.
yeah. I mean, part of how we got to this was it was so glaring to watch religious people, and I remember seeing this sign, which really caused me to really have to think through how we were going to address this issue and vote common good, which led to the Love and Politics Pledge. And it was a sign that said, Trump is my president, Jesus is my savior. As if, well, I don't know why they're bringing those up together, but somehow they were joining these two at the hip and basically saying one gets to be an asshole and the other one, gets to be my savior. And I thought, well, I'm not asking for Trump to be someone's pastor, but I am asking him to actually be a decent leader. And the same with Cuomo, the same with, I can name my elected officials. I want the same from Ilhan Omar. I want the same from Tina Smith. I want the same from Amy Klobuchar. I want the same from Mark Dayton. Like, I want all the people who give some sort of federal or state leadership that impacts the life that I have to comport themselves in a way that's consistent with love. So we just basically say that, step one of the Love and Politics Pledge, commitment one, is that you'll call politicians to act in a way of love and not give them a pass in their professional duties. Now, look, if someone's just curmudgeon-y and doesn't want to be personally patient, is just kind of owly and wants to not be kind and really wants to envy someone else, in their own sort of personal life, okay, whatever's going on in your head, yeah. But when you're going to represent me, I think you need to represent me in a way that is consistent with the means of love. I don't think you get a pass because you're a political leader to not act in a way that all the rest of us would call one another to act. I mean, this is the way they make someone act when you're a server at Sonic, for crying out loud.
Yeah, that's right. I think sometimes, you watch people on the floor of the House of Representatives at times and, yell things, act certain ways, throw masks back at, like there's times where, like, in any other workplace, you would be fired for this. And,
yes,
it is asking our elected leaders to do like the bare minimum of have some common human decency, have some love for both your neighbor and your enemy.
Yeah. And look, I don't know how people get fired from other jobs, but a lot of times there's morality clauses that are put into because they just expect that you're representing an organization or an institution or a business or another person, and you're asked to represent that person in a way that is closest to our highest ideals. We should ask for that from our politicians. We really should. So then, number two of the commitment is that you'll support leaders who do so, whether they're from your party or someone else's, and you'll stand up and call for a change from those who don't. Those who violate the virtues of love, you'll ask them to change and support them when they do. And then you'll call on elected officials to demand that other elected officials also comport themselves in a way consistent with love. No more of this, well, I wouldn't say it that way. Yeah. I think that the self-policing inside of every industry is the most important way that we should get after policing and saying to one another. So, like, you think about how should these people live? Well, I know it's a big call, but a basic essence of being a loving person while you're in this role would prevent so much of the rest of this harmful, horrible nonsense from becoming so consistent across the board.
Yeah. Yeah.
And look, it's not that they have to get it every time. Somebody can be unkind, somebody can be boastful, somebody can be self-seeking, and then fix it. I mean, every tradition, religious traditions, humanist traditions, no systems traditions, they all have a way for people to change, to come back, to apologize, to repent, to whatever word you use. They all have them. We should be invoking that stuff all that much more.
Yeah, absolutely. And if folks want to, kind of dive deeper with the Love and Politics Pledge, they can go to votecommongood.com and you can find the Love and Politics Pledge there. It's something that we have taken all over the country. We have asked politicians to take. We have invited both elected leaders and candidates running for office to take this pledge. We've asked voters to take this pledge. We have asked well-known evangelical Republican leaders to take this pledge.
Yeah, we did.
And we had one refuse us to our face, which was
We asked Michelle
hilarious.
Bachmann at a
Oh,
big
you're just going to go ahead and
conservative.
name her.
Yeah, oh for sure. She used to be a politician here in the area, and so I introduced myself as from being from Minnesota and said, "Hey, we're asking people to sign this Love and Politics pledge," and she looks at it and it's on a bookmark, and she reads the one side that has the First Corinthians on it. Says, "Oh, I like that." Turns it over and reads the four commitments that I just read there, and looks up with this knowing smile and goes, "Oh, I get it. Yeah, I can't sign this," because she knew that it was, this was in 2018. It was directly targeted at trying to separate people from their commitment to a politician and president who would regularly act in the
Yep.
opposite of all such things. So yeah, I mean,
And
people look,
let me just say,
you
Doug,
should get it.
yeah, let me just say, I've got pictures of that encounter, and so maybe I'll post one later.
I forgot about
for
that.
those that might be interested. Yeah,
There are pictures. There are pictures. All right. So look, and I think this is a larger topic in politics, just overall. Like, what should we expect from our politicians? And if you're a politician who has a history of bad behavior, whether you scream at your employees, whether you silence people by using your position, whether you touch people sexually or touch people as a means of power to overcome them, or you ask them to sing you songs that have a sort of sexual tension to them, as Andrew Cuomo is, justifiably accused of having done if you're doing that kind of stuff, shape it up, find another role to benefit our society until you can shape it up, and voters and staff and everyone else who's connected to these things, say something. And that's the hard part, frankly, is when does someone speak up and say something? And it is not easy to do. And we should not be expecting that the most victimized be the first people to say something about this when other people are aware that that person has been victimized.
Yeah.
Now you don't tell their story for them, but there's a way to share this stuff so it gets out. And that's actually what's going on with Cuomo. There was a long history of knowing and recognizing that he was, after he was divorced, I think maybe most recently divorced, maybe divorced a couple of times, that he was on the hunt. He would make public comments about it. Like, this was a person who was just seemingly not at all bound by the normal limitations that a public professional person would try to keep back. And man, I'm telling you, when you see that stuff and you see a little bit of it, there's a lot of it going on.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, we spent a long time on that one.
Yeah, but it's an important topic, and I think it's a really teachable moment for elected leaders. And frankly, there's a whole bunch of other ones, who are probably shaking in their boots in some ways, so. As they see the chickens come home to roost, so to speak, with Andrew Cuomo. Makes me wonder how Matt Gaetz is feeling. Matt Gaetz has taken a completely different approach. I don't know, Doug, did you see that Matt Gaetz got married over the weekend?
I was
congressman
surprised at that, and surprised at the level to which I know about the happenings of Matt Gaetz, because this kind of low-level congressman from Florida with really no professional accomplishments under his belt is so in the news because he's emblematic, because he's a full-throated Trump supporter who wants to be out publicly, has publicists who put him out in the world. Even the things that we would all say is that's bad news for Matt Gaetz, he's like, get it out there because it gets his name in. He's playing that game, and he is well known because he wants to be well known. And I think he's well known because he wants to try to use his celebrity as protection for the criminality that's coming out against him. He is known for a long time that he is under under the watchful eye and the accusations of Justice Department. And so
Yeah.
so anyway, I'm paying
And,
more attention to the life of Matt Gaetz, and we're going to go down to
oh,
Florida with Vote Common Good in 2022, and we're going to pull up a stop in his place, and make sure that all the voters there know that if they want to step away from Matt Gaetz, they've got some cheerleaders and friends on their side to help them do it.
Doug, do you think, in terms of kind of his defense of his criminal behavior and keeping himself out of jail, do you? I mean, I hate to be this cynical. Do you think that's what motivated his marriage over the weekend? Was it true love, or was it a spouse can't testify against their spouse? Like a completely different kind of shotgun wedding.
Yeah, there is a report out that Matt Gaetz's wingman, who was also an elected official at the county level in Florida, who's been arrested, indicted, and has become state's witness against Matt Gaetz, has turned over years of Venmo transactions, which is the way that they exchanged money when they were trafficking women for sexual purposes, and has also turned over thousands of photos. So the idea that he had a very quick wedding to someone that they've been engaged with in a very short period of time, which also now, as you say, gives this person the marriage exemption from being indicted or from being interrogated or from being forced to testify. Yeah, maybe that has something to do with it. Look, almost every marriage I've been to has a lot of reasons why the people are getting married. Some people want the tax break. Some people want to be able to move in together. Some people have an old story of their family in which matrimony is heralded, and they want to join into that long lineage. Some people want to protect themselves against criminal indictments. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons why people get married. Can I tell you a fun story about a wedding one time?
Yeah.
I may have told this one before because I love it so very much. I was doing a wedding for a couple, and it was outside, and it was a very informal wedding, maybe 50, 60 people outside in a little park under some trees. And they wanted it to be very casual and conversational. And the one of the things I like to do at wedding ceremonies is to ask other people around, especially parents or grandparents, like how long they've been married, because I want to help this couple that's about to launch into this new kind of relationship to see themselves inside this longer lineage. So I'd said to I think maybe the bride's parents, like, hey, how long have you all been married? And they said, we've been married for 33 years. I'm like, oh, people applaud and they just feel great about it, and that kind of thing. And like 33 years from now, Anna, you're going to look back on these photos and like this kind of thing. Then I turned to the grandparents of the groom, and these Swedish couple, and I said to them, I said, Grandpa Augustus said, "How long have you and our name I can't remember now, but how long have you and Irene been married?" And he goes, "Oh, we're not married. I'm not giving up my Social Security benefits. We've been living together for 12 years." I mean, it was just the greatest. It was just the greatest. So I turned to the couple. I said, "Well, there's an option. You could do that." And and he's just proud as can be. "Oh no, we're not married. I'm not giving up my Social Security benefits." I don't even know how Social Security works, but he was pretty convinced that he was going to not get something that was coming to him if he ever got married. So yeah, people get married and don't get married for all kinds of reasons. This one, the idea that in the middle of all of this, Matt Gaetz trying to be a politician representing the people of North Florida, the indictments that are coming down on him traveling the country with Marjorie Taylor Greene and others, trying to whip up bus tours to support the return of Donald Trump in 2024. He's got a lot going on that in the middle of this period, in the midst of COVID and the midst of a COVID resurgence, they skedaddle off with a group of 50 or 60 people to California, not even his own home state of Florida, to get married in California. Seems like that's a curious set of conditions right there. There might be something more going on than simply your true love just so compelled you to wrap that love in matrimony and legal entanglement. And what person says, yes, let's get married, when the person you're going to marry is facing federal indictment.
Yeah, and I
That's
don't
a
know.
curious. That's a curious set of conditions. If you're doing the
I don't know if
premarital for that couple, Rob, as a pastor, trying to help the couple save a few
oof,
dollars on their marriage license, you'd probably have them do the,
yeah,
do the survey test and then say, "Are you really comfortable with the timing of this one? Is this one feeling like it's right down the?"
yeah, yeah. I'm going to go really petty here with this, but just as a comment, just from kind of
Uh-huh.
years of experience, I don't know if you saw the picture that Matt Gaetz tweeted of his fiance, now his bride, as they were on the plane headed to California to get married. Did you see this picture? It was a
I
picture of
didn't.
her. It was a picture of her sleeping and kind of head slumped over, mouth open, and the angle was a little bit kind of up the nose, accentuating her mouth being open. And he tweeted this picture about, with, some kind of, sarcastic comment about how beautiful she was or something. And it was just one of those things that, like, listen, I know you're trying to be funny, but wow, I don't, I don't know a woman in my life who would want that picture of her
I see.
tweeted out to millions of people around the world, especially on the brink of her wedding. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it struck me as woefully immature. And
Yes.
and I think he's a person that is just really, really immature, and that is a terrifying thought for someone who represents the people of North Florida, and frankly represents all of us in the House of Representatives.
And why was she not wearing a mask? Was this a private plane they were on? Were they
Well,
flying private?
I don't know the answer to that question. That's an excellent
Because
question, but
any decent, flight attendant whose primary role is your safety, as they remind you, would come to you and say, "You need to cover your mouth and your nose, even while sleeping on an airplane." I've been on many airplanes since we've had the mask mandates. At least on Delta Airlines, they're pretty serious about it. Maybe it's because their airline bears the same name as the variant that is so contagious. Maybe
right.
they're just being extra vigilant. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, well, I get your larger point too. That yeah, who like that's also the kind of thing that like mocking someone when you're on the brink of moving into intimacy, that shows up later in life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Right.
just
That
one of those, like,
you're
just a little
you're
red flag there.
your new partner in life shouldn't be your punchline when you've
Right.
got enough going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
these are the
So
kinds
from
of
red flags to red hats, Trump held the former president, the disgraced, twice
blogger.
impeached, failed blogger, loser of the most, landslide election of all time, or something along those lines.
And the
Um,
person to receive the second most votes ever in the history of the presidential
uh,
election. I mean, just
yeah.
that all
Well,
those things are
I was
also
going to say
true
the
is
person whose
a
opponent
dialectic
received the
I can't
most
get.
votes.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yes, opponent
Oh
received the
goodness.
most.
Yeah. Whew.
And
So
he's a real
so
second place guy. He's a real
yeah,
second
he
place
is.
guy. He doesn't have
Yeah,
a problem with coming in, with coming in and grabbing silver
yeah.
on
An
the medal.
really excellent first loser, and he held a rally this weekend. I think it was in Alabama, and at the rally he. Kind of, I think recognizing maybe some sense of what's happening in the country, that, we've got this Delta variant that is spreading like wildfire, particularly amongst those who are unvaccinated, and recognizing that those who are unvaccinated overwhelmingly tend to be Trump
Mm,
supporters. Um, he's encouraging this crowd to get vaccinated and speaks positively about the vaccine. I think he wants to take credit for it, which frankly, I you
sure.
know what happens during your administration, for good or for bad, you get to,
Sure
you
you get
get it.
credit for it.
And
Sure you get credit for it.
if I'm him, I'm taking credit for it too. And he talked about how he got vaccinated and he patted his arm, and
Yeah,
um
he got the shot. He called it. I got the shot. And then the
and he
people
also got
booed him.
booed him.
And he heard them
Donald
boo
Trump
him and then
booed
responded
him.
to it, and knew. So I mean, the thing that Donald Trump knows how to do and what he uses his rallies for in part is to message test in real time. So
Yeah.
there's no doubt he was message testing. How would that go if I start bringing this up? And not only the boos, I heard all the boos. I watched that video clip. You heard the boos seemingly like they came from the crowd in front of him. The people behind him, people are now doing this since Barack Obama in 2008, where they always surround the background with people. They were not all that enthused about Trump starting to talk about. And he also talked about all the other alternatives that you can do. And sure, you have a choice, but consider getting the vaccine too. I did it, and it really helps. And he wasn't making it seem like it's better or worse, but just one of the options. Whatever he wants to do to sort of push this out. The people behind him, they were having none of it. They were just they were more bored than a junior higher in the balcony of a church service. I mean, they just did not. The last thing they wanted to do was hear Trump now start to sound like Joe Biden. I mean, it's hard enough for Joe Biden to sound like Donald Trump on pulling out of Afghanistan. That's a blend that's happened in our politics that a lot of people can't seem to pull apart, that the two of them shared that same desire and outcome and near on plan. That's confusing to people who really want there to be a hard binary between all presidents. But watching Trump now get out there and try to be boostering the booster shot, no, there's no way. Even if people in the crowd got the vaccine, because I don't think anti-vaxxing or not getting this vaccine breaks evenly on the political spectrum.
Right.
I think we'd see that in the polling.
Yeah.
But these people at the rally were like, don't start going down that route. So I'm sure he has decided, well, I'm not saying that again.
Yeah.
This guy
and
will
it's
simply say what needs to be said. He doesn't speak his mind. He tries to speak the hive mind. That's what he does all
and
the time.
yeah. And we talked about this a bit last week, where these divisions are happening within Trumpism and these separations are taking place. And I think we're seeing more of that now. I don't know, Doug, if you saw Alex Jones in his comments about Donald
No.
Trump, and kind of in a throwaway line after he showed a clip of Donald Trump being booed, and questioned it and wondered what he was doing, and then kind of in a throwaway line as it was going to commercial, he said, and I quote, "Maybe Trump's a dumbass," and Alex Jones, calling
Wow.
Donald Trump a dumbass on the air. So we're seeing this kind of fracturing that is not good for the long-term health of the Make America Great movement. And frankly, I'm glad about that, but it's just kind of from a political perspective, it's interesting to see it fracture, and to see losing one of the big voices within this movement, Phil Valentine, who is a right wing talk radio host, a big one, not to the level of Rush Limbaugh, but still a syndicated radio talk show host, one that I would on occasion, listen to as I was driving into the office, just to kind of hear what was being said. And, he was an anti-vax guy, anti-COVID vax person, really kind of emphasized that COVID was overhyped and, hysterical and, shouldn't be taken seriously. And he died of COVID this past week. And so,
And was remorseful that he took the position that he did.
Well, his
his
brother
family.
said his brother was urging people to be vaccinated. We don't I don't think there ever came a direct statement from him. It
He was dying.
So yeah, you never know. It's just fascinating to see both, and it would be interesting sometime for us to look at kind of what are the political implications of the pandemic on the electorate, both in terms of how it moves people and how it functions in terms of forming public opinion, but then also what it's doing to just the basic electorate. When you have this many people who die, what kind of impact
Mm.
could that have on elections? That's a really cynical way to look at it, but it feels like we're almost being forced into that by people who aren't doing the responsible things of being vaccinated and wearing masks, and those who have vocally supported that, like Phil Valentine did. It's just, it's tragic on the one hand, but it also feels like it was kind of inevitable on the other. And
Yeah, and
and
that's
so
an interesting question. If it breaks, if the deaths are breaking in one political direction or not, I don't know.
yeah.
I mean, I know there's just people on all sides of the political spectrum who are not getting this vaccine and who
Mhm.
are in the in the in the arena of uh, COVID non behaving. They're just not going to
Yeah.
do something. They're not going to wear masks, or they're not going to get the vaccine, or they're not going to be careful and socially distance. There's just a lot of that. And um, I, I hope we can get to a point where the political heat is really, really turned down on this thing. Maybe that's coming now that the FDA has approved it, and you're getting sort of more and more political people who are kind of speaking out about it. That whatever separation is from the non-COVID-19 vaccination people will be a separate context from the political
Yeah.
context, and
Yeah.
maybe it already is, and a lot of us just can't not see it through the political lens most forthrightly. I don't know. It's hard to tell, because what public health people are not doing is asking people about their political affiliations and their political patterns, right? Other pollsters have to do this to try to then extrapolate through statistics on is there a correlation between someone's Republican following and their avoidance. But it sure seems like it, because in the places that tend to lean more Republican, the vaccinations are down. So, but again, we don't know who in those places are the ones not getting the vaccine, and who the people are. Uh,
Yeah.
I just think we don't. I think this is one of the places where our political spaces don't fill uh, the pegs don't fit the political spaces.
Right. Yep. The On Sunday night we were having a little bit of a family night, and we were watching some TV, and an ad came on that was sponsored by the Arkansas Department of Health, and it featured kind of this good old boy country guy who owns a fish restaurant out in rural Arkansas. And he was encouraging people to get vaccinated so they could come back out and enjoy his fish restaurant.
Yeah,
And,
nice.
and he kind of gives this, Arkansas is one of those places where vaccine rates are low. And he was just kind of encouraging people. And it was clearly designed to connect with kind of more rural folks who would be interested in this. And the ad got done, and my 6-year-old Whimsy turned to me and she said, "That was a really good ad." And so, so
Let's get
it's
fish.
it's breaking through somehow. Like, get vaccinated so you can have some catfish.
Hey Rob,
That basically was
if
the
big fish can join together with big pharma and get people vaccinated, we are in business. Who do you think pays? Who do you think underwrites all those ads? Brought to you by the Mercury Council. Hey, thanks everybody for being a part of this with us today. Trisha, Jim, Mark, George. I'm going through the list. Becky, Mike, Brian, all the rest of
Tracy.
you, Linda, Tracy. We appreciate all of you being a part of this, and we can't get to every one of your comments when they happen, but no, we look at them while they're happening. You can see that in our eyes sometimes, and it means a lot to us to have you around. And anybody else that's around. Hey, and if you're in the Southern California, Southern Arizona, Tucson area, the Southern New Mexico area, the West Texas and South Texas area, or the southern part of Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, the northern part of Florida, the We the People bike ride's going to be coming through there. And if you're not near any of those places, you can still connect with us. We're going to be launching here in the next day or so that you can sponsor us per mile. as we ride, because we need a little. I've been working on a little alliteration here, Rob. Here we go. It's the first time I'm saying it out loud, so we'll see how it goes. We need a financial contributions from you because it does a number of things for us. It helps fuel our body. No, that wasn't it. It helps feed our bodies as we pedal. It helps fuel our support vehicles, and it helps fix our flats when they happen. So you'll have a chance to donate. We're going to travel about 3,600 miles, and we need you to feed our bellies, to fuel our trucks, and to fix our flats. See, I think we're going to get this. This is going to be an F alliteration. We the People Ride, brought to you by the letter F and your donations. We start this whole thing in just a few weeks on September 10th, and then we start riding on September 11th. That's no accident. And we start telling the story of how the militarization of our southern border has increased the dilemmas on a lot of people's lives. We're going to be making a documentary about this. And speaking of documentaries, if you have not yet watched the documentary Immigration Nation, Mike Stavlin will concur with this. It's worth the watch. It's a Netflix 6-episode docuseries, hour-long episodes, and it will shake you to your core about the devastation of what went on in our immigration process, especially what went on in 2017 and 18 with the Trump administration and with Jeff Sessions and what they did and how they did it. But our problems are not only laid at the feet of that terrible administration. It's laid at the feet of all of us in this country, and we have to do something about it. So we'd love for you to meet the people as we travel along. And so you can go to We the People Ride and be on our email list at Vote Common Good or at We the People Ride. All these places will get you emails from us. And we'll be in touch with you. Come and join us. Get on your own virtual ride with us. Bike around in spirit with us. Send us $1, a dime, 100, whatever you got per mile. And that would mean a lot to us. Rob, anything else?
No.
Yes, we're going to San Diego. Tricia, we're going to San Diego. We're start in San Diego on September 10th. So go to We the People Ride. You can see it there. We're going to have a whole event there that day. We'd love to see you in San Diego if you're already in San Diego. And I also saw somebody in the chat here that's from Tucson, George Broxton III. George, Olaf from Tucson. We're going to be all around the lower part of Tucson, including Nogales, Arizona, and Nogales, Mexico. We're going to spend a couple of days. So find us, come see us, come cheer us on, come bring us an ice cream cone, something like that, for bikers in a hot desert. But ride fast because they melt. All right, so we'd love to see you any of these places, any of this. You can find all of it over there. And thanks for being part of the podcast, friends. And we will see you tomorrow. We're going to be talking with one of our co-hosts of the Wednesday Day, Dominique Gilliard, who has a new book out, and we're going to be sharing that with you tomorrow. So, Rob, you got anything else? Producer Dan?
Have a great day, everybody.